The most underrated habit in making money and creating wealth, and is so much hated, is saving. Saving. The richest man in Babylon, there is a book, right? He said, first step, create an income stream. Second step, save. Third step, invest. Fourth step, repeat. So when you have an income coming to you, accruing income, you created that way of making money, regardless of how much. $1, 1 million, 1 dirham, 1 million, whatever it is. You start allocate percentage of that to save. Then you have so much saved. At the same time, you have your income coming to you, the source of income. You take that saving to put it into something will create money for you without you involved. So it's passive, that's what's called passive income. At the same, now you have your income and passive income and saving, and then you repeat. And the other thing is, people think short term, think long term. These steps compound of a period of 5 to 10 years. I wanted to say just 10 years, but then 5 to 10 years, because you could always find ways how to play with these 4 steps. In 5 to 10 years, you will be in a different plane, literally. People like Grant Cardone, even Robert Kiyosaki, the rich dad, poor dad, they are in a different level when they are talking about saving is for losers, or losers are savers, and XYZ. They are talking from a different perspective. They're not talking from people who are starting their journey. They're not talking about people who just making it to the end of the month. No. And again, I might get a lot of hate of that because of that. These people are idols, But really, if you dig into them, I did my studies on them, in both of them. I know how they are making money. I know how they started. I know the steps. So even on their steps, they were saving. And you could listen to him, to the guy himself. You go Cardone telling his story, how he started, he was saving. So when you create saving, it's not about the act of saving itself. It's also about the other traits and strengths that you build around this. You will be more patient. You will have more value. You start valuing these dimes, not that there are, the destination, no, but how hard it is to get them. And you will be more diligent and more vigilant and more careful when you invest them, when you spend them. It's not that you, becoming miser or now stingy. No, it's not that. It's you value it. You know where this money is going, and you know how you got that money. This is the value. So the virtues around savings is way underrated. And people, when they think of saving, is going to, the value of the money is going down. Okay, don't save in dirhams or in dollars. Save in gold. You could save in so many ways. You just creating excuses for yourself not to start making money, not to start creating wealth, not to start taking accountable steps, responsible steps to have your financial freedom. It's just excuses. It's easier to make an excuse than to do things. It's easier. It's way easy. It's way easy for me to stop. It's way easy for me to sleep now. Why should I come to the interview at 12? I could come to 12:30. It's easier, right? But it's hard to commit. It's hard to do work. It's hard to wake up on time. It's hard to have the discipline. Most of the people, 90 to 95 of the people, they will start something new. Let's say if it's new, they will start something new. They will give up in a week time. Sometimes it's not. They don't make it even to a week. And I say this again out of experience because I've been there. I've been one of these people. I've been someone who start a habit, 3 days, 5 days, fuck it, I'll go back to the old. I've been there. But the moment that you build the discipline, you build the system around the discipline, you are unstoppable. Really, nothing can stop you, nothing. You should do it regardless if you like it or not, for two reasons. See, how I look into it, if you're doing something and it happens you like it, you take it as a bonus. Yeah? You are not entitled for that. It's just a bonus. It happens that you're doing something that you like. Good for you. Take it a bonus, but not granted. Okay? You should develop the habit of doing things that you don't like to get you where you want to be. I will give again a very practical example. If today, even it happened today, I hate running, for example. I hate running. I don't run. I've been running all my life. I used to play football. I hated every single minute of the training, the preparation, the warm-up, the match, 90 minutes sometimes extended, right? And then you do it 3 to 4 times a week sometimes. And so I've been running, and I had a very major injury that made me stop playing football. So the word running itself, it has some strings in my mind. However, I know that one of the fastest ways to reduce body fat is to run. One of the fastest ways also to develop strong cardiovascular is to run. And today, just before the interview, I was running as part of training, right? I know it's part of the training that I need to do. It's 1 hour training. I need to do 50 minutes of running. It's just that I don't like it, yes, but it will get me the results that I want. So I won't stop. Same thing in business, right? I know that the admin work for me is very boring, very, very, very boring. But I have to go through it because I know if I didn't go this, it's not going to take me the place I want to go. This is a very tricky question. Not because the way you asked it, but also when I look back, I see that I always had this mantra in my head. I don't know where I got it from. It's if someone can do it, I can do it. I don't know if I told you this story, but I memorized Quran when I was younger, like 8 years old. I memorized Quran, and I remember I'm like 6 years old, 5 years old. I would be reading the page, and I'm like, this page is very difficult. I'm telling to myself. When I was a kid, I'm a very quiet kid, okay? So I'm talking to myself, this page is very difficult to memorize. How could someone, XYZ, one of my classmates, memorize it? And I will keep repeating this in my head. I'm like, if they did it, I can do it too. And just next day or same day, I would be like memorizing. So this is one. Same thing when it comes to business also. I would say, how come this campaign for XYZ brand worked and not for me? And then I will irritate, I'll try where I went wrong. I will reverse engineer so many times till I find where I went wrong. And then here we go. It's not that it didn't work for me because I did it right, mostly because I did it wrong. But I was able to point to myself like, yeah, there is something. So I don't know, is it something that was built in me? And I don't want to go spiritual here, but it's something I also developed in things that were not coming easy to me. Yeah, none of my family, they had like the mindset of telling me, if someone did it, you can do it too. None. Most likely they will be, they have 2 eyes like you, they have 2 ears like you, in a like whooping manner, not in an encouraging manner, So yeah, I didn't have someone from my surroundings who were like encouraging me and telling me, hey, someone did it, you can do it too. Yeah, I cannot put my fingers, like, yeah, did I have it? It's compound. And you cannot. It's a journey. For me, being here, it's a journey. But when I reflect back, I did not have the foundation of it, but I had it. When it comes to networking, again, it's all the odds, all the people saying go where rich people are hanging out. I would say don't go where rich people are hanging out. If you're looking to have only the relationship with them, Go where people who share the same passion as you, the same, let's say, hobbies or interests as you, where they hang out. The essence of networking is to build confidence, and on this confidence and trust comes relationships, and then up the relationship come transactions, right? So today you're going to a networking event of these wealthy, rich people. The moment you walk in, the way you talk, the way you walk, the things that you talk about, they split decision. We like this person, we're gonna have some interaction with them or no, regardless of how you evaluate that. And most of the time it doesn't even occur to your mind, but this is how it works. They look at you in a split. Yes, this person is in, this person is out. And unless you already have the rapport with them, you'll not be in. Take the reverse. You go to people who they share the same passion as you, the same interest as you, 100%, you'll be talking non-stop. Both parties, you and them. You will be creating that level of confidence, that level of trust. And then after some time, that relationship is built. And I can ask you a question, and I can ask you for recommendation. I can ask you to connect me to some people within your network. You will not have a second thought of introducing me or connecting me. And I know that for a fact. For example, myself, most of my networks around the things that I love to do as hobbies. I have, yes, my community for founders and people who create businesses, but also I have my gym groups. I have my hiking groups. I have my adventures groups. And these people are like, hey, I know you work at this. Can you introduce me to the head of da-da-da-da? I have something that might be of interest of them. Like, yeah, sure. Second day, third day, I'm there. Straight away, crossing all the lines. That just became, it's just because we had mutual interest that was genuine. The commercial transaction of it was not the foundation, right? When you go to reach people networking, the foundation is the commercial. And funny enough, these people, if you hang with them, but not in these networking events, in something else that they are also interested about, they have some passion for, it will work for you way faster than going to this business or this rich networking events. And again, out of experience. Yeah, 100%. So for introverts, exactly for introverts and nerds and geeks, these people, when they hang out with these communities, people have the perception that they are also closed, which is not. I can tell you, there is so many people watching this kind of networking, these kind of communities. And most of these people who are watching are these rich men, are these business people, commercial people, because they know what they want. You know, it's like they know this is treasure. The moment it opens, we're going to take as much as we can. And even with these communities of introverts, whatever they're going to, 100%, some of them is working in some place that has these people, right? And it repels. It's one of them, how to say, one of the very mistaken perspective about people and human and professional is it's mono perspective. You know, they think this person does this, so the circle is limited here. It's not. You are discounting the ripple effect and the butterfly effect of this person and the things that they're doing. And especially now, we're living in a time where with one snap, you could reach to millions of people. Not even, maybe sometimes billions, right? So people are discounting the ripple effect big time, big time. And again, you could realize it from how they speak, what they're talking about, their attitude. And all of that is like this scan when you go to these networking events, let's say the rich people are networking event, because they go through so much. It's a journey, you know, they were not born that way. Even if it's inherited or big family, they went through certain systems that can make them evaluate it in a split of a second. This is that, and that's it. It's very difficult then to change that, to take something. Yes. So that's why I said, if you met them on the things that they love to do, you will have high chances to access than going to these specific events. And again, I say it from experience. I have so many stories about that. I had one of my flatmates 5 years ago who used to work in a PRO company, and one of their clients was filthy wealthy man. He would never meet them in the office. I'm telling you, he's always hanging out in certain sport. He would tell them, at this time, I will be there playing this. Come, meet me there. So, and when he goes, like, he would come and tell me, like, Hafiz, I met XYZ, very prominent name, okay? Met XYZ, and around him were ba, like all of these people with prominent brands. So it tells you something, right? And again, look, he's a PRO, I'm in financial services. From a broad view, there is nothing could maybe intervene between us, but we're living in the same place. So the story came to me and I understood something. And that's what I said. People discount the ripple effect, how things could go. Again, we're living in this time. From my experience, the biggest mental challenge I had to overcome is creating immunity of how people perceiving me and what people thinking about me, especially close people to me. That means family and friends. When the moment you are detached from how they think who you are, what their opinion about what you do, anything, not necessarily business again, and what their opinion about how you think, or the way you dress, or the people that you meet, the moment you detach this from how it affects you, you just up level to some place that very, very few people can reach. And again, that's not necessary in negative way. So also even is in positive things. So sometimes, for example, like, yeah, you are number one in this, but deep inside, it's not. You take it as a bonus again. You take it as a bonus, but not as a fact. So it also goes when they tell something negative. Same thing. You take it as a feedback that based on their environment and their awareness, but not necessarily your truth. Your truth, you make your truth. And again, this is not to put blame on them. It's just you understand who you are, what do you want in life, and they did the best they can to put you kind of there. But again, I will give examples. I will make it multiple dimension examples. So, for example, none of my family is a billionaire. There is a couple of millionaires, yes. But the way even these people they made money, it's the old school way. It's not something that I want to do. So I took a different approach. I don't necessarily listen to their advices 100%. I will just mix and match what fits the puzzle for me. And the same thing, in health-wise, I don't know anyone from my first degree family or second degree or third degree and 2 generations or 3 generations back is as healthy as I am. I genuinely don't know. Hence, whenever they comment or they will say, Hafiz, why you eat? I have true story, I will tell you after this one. So when they comment, why you eat this, why you don't eat that, eat this, eat how many times you eat, why you train this much, why you put yourself in such suffering, they are not on a plane or consciousness or understanding awareness of who I am. My mom and my dad are first degree cousins. So I am genetically prepared to carry the sickness and the illness that they had. I have maybe no choice then, but now I have a choice. So I'm genetically also altering by creating these habits, by building new routines, by building different mindsets. All of this now is in my DNA, is muted from the DNA that I inherited, 100%. So I will tell you the story now. So the first 2 years I came to Dubai, I went back home, and it was 2018. So in 2018 I did something. I enrolled in a fitness challenge that I reduced my body fat percentage from 29-30 into 11%. I was shredded as fuck, and I did that in 6 months. So the program was 90 days. I did it 2 times. It was based on 0 carbs. Okay, 0 carbs. Imagine. And I know for so many countries and cultures, rice and bread is like the foundation of the meal. You know, you cannot have anything without that. So going from this to that. And I did it on purpose 2 times because I wanted to build the habit, the routine, and the lifestyle. So since then, okay, let's say since 2017, I train 6 days a week, non-stop, regardless of where I am. 6 days a week is a must. If 5 days, not less than that. So anyways, I came back home, and apparently I'm way thinner than the last time they saw me. So my grandmother was sitting there, may her soul rest in peace, and her friend was visiting. And then my mom was there, and I came in and I said hi, and I sat on a couch, and my grandmother's friend, she did not pay attention / recognize me. And after some time I did one interaction in the conversation, and then she leaned forward to my grandma. She was like, "Is this Ahmed?" And I heard her. I was like, "Yeah, that's me." And she said, "What happens?" She said, "What happened?" She said, "We know people go to the UAE, they come back fat that the airplane seat will not be, enough for them. What happened to you?" I told her, "You know what? Maybe I'm the healthiest one in the family that you know and I know." And she's like way older, so like, and she did not understand it, and she did not want to go further. It will create, a little bit of attention. So this is true story. My mom told me, "I think you are sick, but you are hiding it from us." I swear. I was like, "Mom, no. Why would I hide it? First of all. Second of all, why you think I'm sick?" You see, again, this comes the environment and the awareness and the level they are at. Why you think I'm sick? Why you don't think that I'm healthy? And you could tell someone is healthy or no, but again, for them, it's not. My number 1 tip for goal setting is 3 words. Write it down. I don't know how I could explain that. Maybe this setting will not be enough to explain, to go through the whole justifications. But the moment you start writing down the things that you want, your goals, you will have a flow of steps. You will have a flow of understanding. You've had a flow of knowledge of how to get that thing done. And sometimes it might take you 1 week, maybe it will take you a month, maybe it will take you a year. But you will have that, I would say, feeling. It's happening. And like the opposite to this is not writing it down. You just like, it's in my head. Okay, tomorrow I will do this. You will think about it. Okay, I will take 1, 2, 3 steps, and you sleep on it. Next day, blank.
There's a million things.
Nothing. Yes.
Once you write it down, it becomes real.
Once you write it down, it's not only becomes real. It's you're telling your mind, you creating new neurons this thing is happening. Again, there is so many, scientific, spiritual, and explanations to this, but it's as basic as you telling your mind this thing is happening, and then the techniques and the methods that you develop to do that thing it will come naturally. Let's put it that way. My take on affirmation is I 1000% believe in them. I do them every single day, multiple times through the day. And I could debate on that till the end of my life. Just easy one, very easy one, very common, very known one. Regardless of what religion that you follow or you believe in, you have a prayer, right? Right or wrong? You have a prayer. What's any prayer start with? Any prayer you do, it starts with what? Affirmation. So when you do affirmation consciously, you're just taking the prayer into another level. That's why, let's say in Islam, you have khushu', and the same thing in Christianity, same thing in whatever, Buddhism, Jewish, all of it. There is affirmations, and you do them multiple times through the day. You cannot tell me, you cannot convince me that affirmation doesn't work. The second layer to affirmation is belief. And again, very easy example. Any religion you follow, they tell you with whatever you ask or whatever you affirm, you must believe. The belief that makes the things that you affirm actually happening. That's one. Two, the belief and the confidence of the thing that you affirm. And again, we'll have a little bit of tweak to that. Anything that you affirm, you directly linked to an image. So what about this image that you're affirming to? Are you believing in this image? So we will take an easy one again. People who wants to lose weight, they're like, yeah, we want to lose weight. I'm, let's say, fit, I'm athletic, da-da-da-da. But the moment they say that, what is the image there? Unfortunately now, you cannot see it, I cannot see it. They themselves, they can only, if they are truthful and honest, they can tell you, yes, I have this image of fit body, if they are like to being truthful. But in my opinion, 98%, 99% of the time, the image is wrong. It's not what they are affirming. Hence, they don't have that density of belief and the confidence of what they are affirming to. Look, you could be affirming something that maybe is not incoherent with what you're doing now, but if you affirm with belief and confidence, you could be that 100%. Because the moment you have the belief and then you have the confidence, this will push you to do things pursuing the image that you pursue, the image that you want to, you created, you affirming to. So if, let's say, the example that you gave. So if let's say I'm an accountant today, okay? I'm affirming that I'm a football player or basketball player. And then I started doing what will take me there because I believe and I'm confident, I will be there. Yes, there is so many other factors that maybe more people will be more skillful than you. You today started early, and that's all valid. That's all valid. But again, if we are talking about the possibility, it's possible. The most effective leadership hack that I personally use, and it's working magic for me, is telling your people, give them glimmers of what's their potential like, what they can do, what they can achieve, whether you are in or out of their life. The amount of, performance, loyalty, sense of belonging, going upward and onward toward achieving the organization goal, you cannot measure. you cannot measure. And again, if we going to link it to something that we mentioned early on the interview, that you set them free. Like, you guys, I know you can achieve XYZ. And again, you justify it. It's not something delusional. No, you tell them, because this, you can do XYZ, and you let them go. If they are with you within the organization or not. And as simple as energy, you know, if they are meant to be there, they will be there and they will grow. If they are not with you, they are going to grow somewhere else, because you set them free. But make sure you 100%, the people who will stay, they will give you their 2000%. And I know that for a fact. I know that out of experience. I know people who are still working with me. They are giving me their 2,000, 3,000%, and I'm trying to be as generous as possible with them. And I know people who are not working with me now, but till date, they are in touch with me. They are telling me what they are achieving. I'm celebrating with them from the bottom of my heart. I'm so happy for them, whatever they are doing, whatever they are achieving. And I have 0% jealousy or enviness or regression or none of that. I'm genuinely happy for them, because I was able to add this 0.000% of confidence to their to tell them what they can achieve and how potential they have within themselves, and they actually did it, whether again they were with me or not with me. And this is the whole essence actually of being in this life, being human, that adding value to people. And whenever it's crossing paths between what they want to be and what you can actually add value to them, it's like. So the thing with micromanagement, it comes, in my opinion, it comes from insecurity about yourself and also your team. So when yourself, as you did not give them everything that will make them successful, in a way that you want to be always the leader, always number one. And number two, insecurity, you not trust them because deep inside you know they are not equipped to do that. In this scenario, there is, in my opinion, there is maybe one or two solutions. One solution, you intervene and you do the thing that the way you know how to do it faster and deliver on deadlines, but you owe them an apology. So to your team, you apologize. Guys, I did not did this. Here I'm coming. You do it. Second thing is you apologize, but you let them do the best they can. And in both solutions, in my opinion, there is lessons. So you know that you apologize, so you release that ego, and they can see you better now. And you know that they missed a deadline. They will miss a deadline. They will learn how to handle missing deadline. And you could teach them how to handle it also.
Is that venture capital is by far and away the most successful asset class in all finance.
Yeah.
It's averaging 26% compounded per year. We are investing in what we call the ABCDs.
I was waiting for this part.
You cannot be a venture investor. You can't call yourself one if you don't have a fancy acronym. I'll simplify it into 4 things, right?
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, that's the A. Blockchain, that's the B. Computer chips, that's the C. And D is for data. Every 10 or 15 years, the internet changes. You can basically predict when this is happening on Web3 is forecasted to eclipse $10 trillion. So more than both Web 1 and Web 2 combined. There has been more data created in the past year than there has been in all of human history.
Not a lot of people knows that actually.
Regardless of the political party that is in office, the price of Bitcoin always goes up after an election.
Can you give us a little bit of something that you've been longing for, and then after the election went like from 0 to 100?
He's labeling himself the first crypto president since, let's say, Trump's been elected. You're looking at a 30% increase on the price of Bitcoin.
The step that Donald Trump did now, creating this department, it can be the domino effect for everything to balance out. Nvidia, Google,
Sure.
Apple, Meta. There is huge investment. This is Hafizknows investment podcast. We're going to focus today about venture capital. We have our guest, Mr. Xavier, the man, the legend, the myth.
Too kind.
Coming all the way from North Carolina, Morgan Creek Capital. I want you to introduce yourself to the audience in a very swift, easy to follow, understanding description and briefing about who you are, what's your firm doing, a little bit about your track record, and a little bit about what you're focusing next.
Absolutely. Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I know we've been meaning to do this for a long time, and normally I'm on the other side of this, so I'll have to excuse if I'm a little bit rusty for the audience, but I'll say that it is not my first time into Dubai, although I'm originally from the New York area. And really kind of before the investment career, and talk a lot about what venture capital is, I first and foremost was somebody interested in technology. So I was building companies, both from an operator and as an entrepreneur, and really looking at the data behind the next innovations of the internet. So I was building companies in both AI as well as big data, and had a couple of successful startups, some not so successful, but really earning the stripes into what eventually became Web3. And so this was this concept of every 10 or 15 years, the internet changes, both from a software perspective as well as a hardware perspective. And you can basically predict when this is happening. Basically, every time you get on the internet and you experience that it's really not as great as you remember it being, it's time for a change. If we recall in the Web 1 era, it's when we heard those really annoying dial-up modems. And we think that maybe there's a better way to do this, right? And so when we had that really high-speed connection, we also got to a point where it's like, well, I don't want to leave the internet, right? So I need to have this on all the time. Enter the mobile phone. And so now this idea of Web3 is really about incorporating the first two, reading things on the internet as well as writing things to the internet, which is like when we do a Facebook post, we are the product. We're putting our videos, our photos on these platforms. And now we can get to a point where we can actually own some of that content. So imagine a world where the Hafiz Business Podcast can now actually get a little bit more social status and points because you're providing value in a curated format to your listeners and audience, more so than somebody who has no real clue about what they're talking about, but maybe they have a following. So what that led to us doing at Morgan Creek was catching growth waves. So we've been in the business for over 20 years, really focused in on the next great wave of innovation. And for us, where it really got interesting is in 2018, where we kind of launched the first series of venture capital firms, again, with this idea of investing in the next generation of the internet. And that brings us all the way to today, Hafiz, where we are investing in what we call the ABCDs.
I love that. I was waiting for this part, the ABCDs. So please carry on.
Well, you cannot be a venture investor. You can't call yourself one if you don't have a fancy acronym, right? It has to be a way for folks to easily remember what can be a lot of technology. So I'll simplify it into four things, right? Artificial intelligence, that's the A. Blockchain, that's the B. Computer chips, that's the C. And D is for data.
I love that.
And so I'll kind of go in reverse and mean a little bit more in substance what this actually represents. So if we think about this, there has been more data created in the past year than there has been in all of human history. And it's only growing exponentially.
Not a lot of people knows that, actually.
Exactly right. Yeah. And so every single day we're adding more and more to this, right? We're adding 300 million gigabytes into this space, terabytes, which is a zeta gig. So it's basically an astronomically large number, right?
Can you make any visual representation of this gigantic amount of data?
Right. So
anything similar, like how many planets Earth this data is?
Yeah. So basically, if you can think about it in terms of, a song that you may download, right? So let's say a song, we now stream our music, but in the past, let's say if a song was 5 megabytes, right? There were 1,000 megabytes in a gigabyte. There's 1,000 gigabytes in a terabyte, and then there are another 1,000 in a in a terabyte, right? And so beyond that, you now have 300 million of these terabytes.
And that's now being every day.
Every single day.
Wow.
Right. And before
Gen Z will not relate to this.
Right. And so when we have these concepts of, always on or streaming, that data has to live somewhere, and we don't really consume it as a downloadable thing, but somebody is downloading it somewhere, and that's what the cloud is, right? So that goes into the C of artificial intelligence, computer chips, right? And so computer chips are all around us. So if we have this idea where in this room, we're in a beautiful studio, thanks for hosting us, you can find and expect the average person to have somewhere in the vicinity of about 10 to 30 of these chips.
Wow.
Which, is a good amount. But in 10 years' time, that will be 1,000, right? And so all of these chips have a very specific function. And so when we look at things like storage, it's really the ability to do two things: being able to store something for a long time and not have it be corruptible, but then also retrieve it really quickly when you need it.
Yeah.
Exactly right. So that has two kind of different functions and two different kinds of chips. Without getting too technical, it's kind of like
let's
long-term and
relatable.
So we'll bring it down to one thing that people have heard a lot, right? Which is artificial intelligence, the A. And so we are now familiar with things like ChatGPT, and it provides a lot of users this utility with basically asking a question and just magically getting an answer. And so that's really powered by the data and the chip, right? Because now we have a chip that can get data quicker.
Yes.
And so really all AI is, it's running pattern recognition on a bunch of data. And the better the data, the better the answer. We've all had the scenario where we ask ChatGPT a question. It doesn't say, I don't know. It'll just make something up.
It will not say, I don't know. It knows something. But how accurate what this tool knows depends and based on the data provided to it.
Exactly right. And as we train computers to think more and more like human beings, they act more like human beings. Like, for example, there's a joke, that my wife always says, that I won't ever stop to ask for directions. And I think AI is the same way. It won't stop to ask for directions. It'll just keep driving. So that leads us to where blockchain meets. And what is blockchain? We're not necessarily just talking about, gambling here and seeing what is the next fad of the week. When we say blockchain, this is a fundamentally different way of storing information.
Yes.
Think about it as a fancy spreadsheet, but a spreadsheet that can never be deleted.
Exactly.
And so if you add the 3 of those or the 4 of those together, you've got increasing amounts of data exponentially, which leads to a better artificial intelligence engine. You need to store that somewhere. That's your blockchain. And of course, the power of all the software is enhanced by new chips that come out every year.
Beautiful.
So that's our ABCDs.
Yeah, beautiful. So basically what Xavier is trying to say is this is the foundation and the infrastructure for the next, decades or hundreds of years that we're going to live. And that's bring, I think, to the first definition that you mentioned is you kind of predict what's the next wave. So, and if we looked historically, that's true. But who is there to look into it? It now comes to people who are interested in ventures and venture capital and investments. All right. So you catch the waves before it goes. Now, and with all what you described, your ABCDs, what the challenge that you see coming up next? Let's say, let's not go so far.
Sure.
We'll come to that point, but let's not go so far. Let's say for the next 10 to 20 years.
Yeah. And I think you summarized it really well, because the point of a venture capitalist is still at the end of the day to generate a return for the investor. So you cannot invest in something.
This is what we're trying, sorry to cut you, but this is what we're trying to teach the investors, to teach the policymaker, to teach the decision makers, not only out there, also here in this side of the world. And the role of the venture capital and the overall the venture capital investors, being individuals, being institutions, is not to think of the returns now. The thinking, the time span is anything between 7, 10, 20, 25 years. And historically, that been the case. And in every wave, as you described it, it's been like that. whether it was cars, whether it was radios, mobile phones, computers, it's always been like that. The venture capitalists invest now and then reap the rewards 2 decades down the road, right?
Exactly right. And I think you captured that really well.
Yeah.
And what you're touching on is a concept that we call the S-curve, which is basically a fancy way to say some things start from a very small number of people, and they are kind of the innovators, the first people that are trying a technology. And it may not work, and you may not want to invest at that stage. But once it kind of gets to the next step, which is the early adopters, a lot of angel investors, some early stage venture capitalists will look in that kind of stage of an investment. And really what this is trying to do and to accomplish is to address a risk-adjusted return. We're in a finance podcast anyways, and I think this is an idea of, depending on making a return, it's not enough to make a return in an absolute way. You want to make a return commensurate with the amount of risk you're taking, right? So if you are making an investment with very little risk, it is probably unrealistic to think that your return will be that much above the risk-free rate. It may be, but it's not necessarily repeatable or sustainable. And if you're doing something with high risk, well, then you better assure yourself that you're going to be compensated for that risk.
You better have a good heart, strong heart.
And so to the question about, what's coming in this, 10 or 15 years, that's really where we spend the majority of our time thinking about. And you have to sort of, keep 2 feet on the ground, but you also have to reach for the sky.
True.
So you have to know what is kind of up next and what could be potentially going to the step in the adoption curve that we call the early majority. And so the early majority is basically right when you're starting to see more people talk about this. So if you want to think about something like a smartphone, the early majority in the smartphone might be argued happening before the iPhone itself. Right? Because when the iPhone came out, there was already a mass mobile internet.
Yes.
So it was already productized. It already had wide connection. It had carrier support through Verizon, and it was global. Right? But maybe when something was developed in Symbian, in the Nokia platforms, people didn't really recognize that as the internet. It was its own first thing. But the people who were using that and putting your email on that were some of the early majority people. So if you invested into some of those platforms, that could be some of the early shades of venture capital. So when we look at what's to come in 10 or 15 years, it really starts with where are some of the problems today. And so at the end of the day, if you're creating any technology, it needs to kind of accomplish one of 2 things. It has to make things a little bit easier to work with, or it has to make things a little bit faster and cheaper to work with, right? So ease versus speed.
Yeah.
And then in the end, they'll hopefully accomplish, one of 2 goals, which is either increasing profits or decreasing costs, right? So it's a matter of efficiency. And it's really just that simple. And that's what we look at some technologies within the ABCDs. What gets us the most excited about this are the intersections. Right, the real applications.
So the inventions where there is an overlap between the 4 lanes that you're focusing in.
Exactly right.
Okay. It's like the ikigai of the next solution.
That's right. That's right. Okay. It's so important because I think what you tend to see is, let's say one of these solutions by themselves, they could be okay. But if you have a chip company, for example, and the chip company is just to make a faster computer, let's say, however you define it, maybe it's computations per watt hour. That might not be that successful if you don't define. Well, I want to have a greater amount of computations per terawatt hour relative to the power that I'm using. Okay, well now you've made a really important distinction. Now you're talking about efficiency, right? Making things a little bit less costly. And so that might mean
consuming.
Exactly, right? That might mean that this chip might be better suited for a mobile phone as opposed to a data center. And so now I can think about what this chip needs to do for a mobile device. So I've combined kind of 2 things. I've combined chips and I've started to introduce artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Because now I'm using data.
So much data,
in order to make that more efficient.
Okay. Interesting. Why I asked what are you solving on the long run and I asked you to, we will come back to this point because the events that happened in the past couple of weeks, and especially with the lanes that you're focusing on, I assume it accelerated a lot of your efforts. I'm talking about the re-election of Donald Trump.
Sure.
And the intersection between what he was being promising in his campaigns and what you guys are also focusing, which is, again, artificial intelligence, blockchain, chips, and data.
That's right.
So can you give us a little bit of something that you've been longing for, and then after the election, it went like from 0 to 100. You know? That's a little bit of examples, and we want to, make an analogy or give some numbers so we can imagine the magnitude of this acceleration.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think, when we look at the impact of the election in the US and what it could mean for our tech industry, what gets people excited about any change in administration is a little bit more clarity on what might be on the horizon. Okay. Where we had our industry on the venture side, things were growing, but we had a little bit of a market reset over the last couple of years. We had some pretty high valuations that were basically reset because of a couple things. The macroeconomic climate was a little bit uncertain, a little bit murky. High interest rates meant that all of a sudden startups couldn't get cheap access to capital. So they had to wait a little bit longer to raise funds. Some didn't survive, and some that had to raise, they didn't hit their milestones. And so therefore their valuations came down. Yeah. So what is happening now is this idea that there is an embrace on things like cryptocurrency. And I think Trump, hopefully he's correct in this, is he's labeling himself the first crypto president. Yeah. And so what that basically means, he came out in Bitcoin Nashville. I know you've seen this event. It's one of the Super Bowls of our industry. And it's an event to really promote what is happening in the Bitcoin space specifically. And what this would mean, and I think if you zoom out a little bit and talk about what's going on with Bitcoin, every 4 years, there are predictable cycles about what the price will do with Bitcoin, rising up and then kind of falling as new Bitcoin are minted every 4 years. And I thought what was very interesting is we did some research about this and found that regardless of the political party that is in office, the price of Bitcoin always goes up after an election, right? So it's already pre-programmed into this. And I know that your show does a lot of research into behavioral finance.
Yes.
And so part of the beauty and the simplicity of Bitcoin is it also removes some of the biases in terms of, well, do people think that this is a very speculative asset? Do people think this is going to perform well? There's definitely a component of that of Bitcoin, but it's also very predictable in terms of what cyclicality will do. So if we're thinking about numbers and the impact since, let's say, Trump's been elected, you're looking at a 30% increase on the price of Bitcoin within less than a month. And so why is it doing that? There are a couple of reasons. There's basically 3 things that he suggested that could drastically improve the price of Bitcoin and therefore potentially shift everything up a gear in tech. One was creating a strategic U.S. reserve in Bitcoin. And so this could mean potentially the U.S. buying 1 million Bitcoin over 4 years, 200,000 per year. And as you know, we don't exactly make new Bitcoin that often, right? It's sort of this exponential curve where we're getting close to the end. And so by the U.S. sort of committing this, it's really setting this precedent that, number one, it's okay to have this asset on your balance sheet. And we've seen other companies respond. Like, did you know that the nation of Bhutan, a third of its GDP is actually held in reserve in Bitcoin?
Oh, really?
So they've pledged up to $1 billion in this asset. And of course, El Salvador has made it a national
El Salvador
currency.
is known, but Bhutan I didn't know about.
Bhutan is this little known fact, which I think is amazing and shows their kind of commitment and growth. And that is something that really, why would they do this? I think it's doing a couple things. It could be a potential inflationary hedge, but it can also serve as a cheap, frictionless way to move money across borders, which is the second thing that Trump actually mentioned. This idea that there could potentially be no capital gains tax on U.S. cryptocurrency companies,
yes.
which is why, in addition to the rise that we saw in Bitcoin, we also saw a rise in Cardano and Ripple because those are US-based protocols.
Yes.
And he suggested that if companies come back and domicile in the US, they would get the same tax treatment. And I guess it creates a lot of intrigue, right?
Yeah,
it creates a lot of intrigue.
Yeah.
And so when we saw in this election, we saw, 300 of the 400 plus lawmakers all be pro crypto candidates. So this is a big shift.
It's a big shift.
That's really what people are getting excited about, Hafiz, is this idea that crypto was becoming a little bit more mainstream. So if you look at that S curve where you mentioned the innovators and then the early majority that can come after the early adopters, we're kind of getting to that point where if you see companies like BlackRock issuing new products that can allow people to trade Bitcoin easily, well, now you really have some momentum. And I think when you look at what this could mean for startups that are engaged in the Web3 economy, it gets us super excited.
Yes. So I anticipate also now the craze of the Web3 startups is gonna take that slope again upward. But I was also asking about specific numbers, let's say, within your portfolio that you've noticed, okay, we have got this portfolio company or this being growing after the election this much. But I'm also going to go one point back where you mentioned these government officials that new ministry came out with such a name,
right?
Everything, but also that made me reflect on how much this man is going to influence and to impact the industry, not only because you're looking into efficiency, right?
Sure.
And the ABCDs are embedded within that because everything you're building is to enhance something, as you mentioned.
That's right.
Make something faster, better, cheaper, and so on. So when this embedded with the government mandate and what they want to do, at least let's say for the next 4 years, I anticipate a lot of flooding from these Web3 companies and technology companies, and also perhaps some of your portfolio also going to catch with that craze. And it's not going to, when we say craze, because usually there is a negative strings to it, but craze in a good way, meaning there is always a push that happens somewhere, somehow, to accelerate this development. And we always seen it in the S curve. We've seen it 20 years ago, we've seen it 40 years ago, we've seen it 60 years ago, and so on, so on. So if you could tap into these 2 points, firstly, the numbers in terms of your portfolio, and second, what this Doge going to do?
Yeah, great question. So on the idea of numbers, when we spoke about the way that the internet changes every 10 or 15 years, let's kind of put that into context. So if you were fortunate enough to invest in those first couple of Web 1 companies, and actually the most successful website in 1995 was encyclopediabritannica.com. So it was a very kind of basic search type of environment, and you can get information like you would in an encyclopedia. If you were able to invest in kind of those first early set of Web 1 companies, those investors made around $1 trillion, right? So very fabulous outcome.
Wow.
But if you went into...
But also, let's before we move to the next one, let's put it in perspective. So if someone is making $1 trillion, in how much time?
So that is over a 10-year period.
10 years. So you're making 100 billion every year?
Compounded, depending on when you exit a company every 6 years, roughly.
The point I want to emphasize here is even for the so-called short-term investors, when you look into this, you have this opportunity, went into $1 trillion, compounded 100 billion or 10 a year. It's such a great deal.
Absolutely. I mean, Warren Buffett, kind of the Oracle of Omaha, he is a real big advocate for buying mispriced assets. And I think that there is no greater mispriced asset than a private venture-backed company.
Yes.
Because you are really betting on the team, the market, and the terms that you entered into
Yes.
the opportunity, and then, of course, the product.
Yes.
So when you are having success in kind of this early internet phase, a lot of investors will continue to roll over their profits into the next wave. And what we've seen time and time again, dating back to the last 40 years, is that venture capital is by far and away the most successful asset class in all of finance.
Yeah.
It's averaging 26% compounded per year.
Wow.
That doesn't mean that every single year you're going to get 26%. Some years you might only get treasury bill rate of return, but other years you can get
Treasury
higher.
bills like 6%, guys.
Exactly. Yeah. 6%.
Yeah.
So you really, this idea is that it should absolutely be an important part of growth in your portfolio. And that's where we got our roots from in the endowment model. This idea that it wasn't enough to just have, 40, 60 allocation between stocks and bonds. You needed to actually compensate yourself for the additional risk and therefore get a higher potential rate of return. And so alternatives for us were really born out of this idea. And so it kind of flows into what happened next in sort of the Web 2 era. Was there a letdown? Did investors do less well in Web 2 than Web 1? They did better, but not just by a little bit, by 5 times. Wow. So when we kind of get to this next phase, and these are companies we know very well, right? The Googles of the world, the Facebooks of the world. And these are companies now that are driving not just performance for venture investors, but they're driving performance for every person who has a 401k, every person who invests in the Fortune 500 companies. They're getting driven by these early stage venture capitalists that were able to find these companies and kind of grow them into a successful exit.
Interesting.
Right? And so when people are the most excited about Web3, it's because the growth on Web3 is forecasted to eclipse $10 trillion. So more than both Web 1 and Web 2 combined.
Yeah.
And the idea is it is very difficult, and there are very few examples of a successful Web 1 company that now bridges over and becomes a successful Web 2 company, and then bridges over to become a successful Web 3 company.
And here there is a very important point. I assume most of the people don't know how big of investment these successful Web 2 companies are putting into grabbing and kind of catch the wave on the next development.
Absolutely.
So you name them, NVIDIA, Google, Apple, Meta. There is huge investment. And again, as much as I try to make the people understand the size of this investment, the impact, and how this is affecting everything we do now. And this is driven by the investment of these companies, because perhaps they noticed that not every successful Web 1 company made it to the Web 2.
Exactly.
And to prevent this, so they start these investments now, finding the next wave, the next winners for the Web 3 that under their wings.
Exactly.
So I would also think that maybe Microsoft have done that, because their model was not to invent, their model was more to acquire. So now we're witnessing multiple big companies are doing the same. And I think it's just going to get more competitive, getting bigger. And of course, the end user is reaping the whole reward of this competition, right? Now, the second point, the Doge.
That's right. So I'm so glad you mentioned that idea of acquisition, because it was really why I became a venture capitalist in the first place, was working for large companies, selling companies. This idea was, if you could get on the front of the innovation, I might not be a true innovator, like the ground one person to say, okay, we're going to use XYZ protocol. That is really, really difficult to do, but some people are very successful at it. But if you can now spot those early adopters, the first people who start saying, actually, you know what, now we're sending Bitcoin to buy pizza, right? And people always laugh that the first Bitcoin bought in pizza, or first pizza bought in Bitcoin was $10,000, right? But that actually allowed the rest of the network to flow, because it proved that you can actually exchange Bitcoin for value, in this case, pizza. So when it comes to something like Doge, and why people were freaking out, was because it's an opportunity here to get tech a little bit more front and center when it comes to kind of US regulation. And so this idea was that if we look at governments in a large country like the United States, there are a ton of inefficiencies. And one thing that our listeners may not know is that the largest venture investor in the world is the US government.
Yeah.
Right. So you have this kind of paradox.
Yeah.
One time you have this very large set of institutions, but then you also have some bit of investment that is occurring there. So when you had somebody like Elon Musk, this guy is a serial entrepreneur, and say what you will about some of his controversies. I won't really go into that, but I'll kind of say that what he can show us is this idea to be incredibly forward thinking.
Yes.
And while people went nuts about this on the Department of Government Efficiency, he was known to be a very early backer of the Doge coin, which is basically a spoof on Bitcoin. It's a fork of Litecoin, which is a fork of Bitcoin. And there was not really any utility towards this cryptocurrency like you might see for Ethereum or Solana. But given that the Department of Government Efficiency was headed by Musk and he has an investment in Doge, Doge rose way faster than Bitcoin. It grew like 100%. And some people are calling it to grow double from where it is today inside of a year's time. And so this kind of creates this excitement on, well, if now Musk has done other things like allow for companies to buy in Bitcoin companies that he has started. And he's also allowed, I think at one point you could have bought a Tesla with Dogecoin. And so this kind of creates an opportunity to rethink what these networks can do. Sometimes things start off as a joke. I mean, Bitcoin started off as a joke until it basically was able to find this product market fit or another point in the S curve. So when we look at these growths in these meme coins, really the growth is there are kind of more supporters at a government level. There is potential for further reinvestment and growth in the utility of what's happening on the underlying currency.
Yes. I want also to touch on the point that, as you just mentioned, there is kind of paradox where the US is the largest investor. At the same time, there is investment going on.
Sure.
My observation is, I would say they are the largest investors, but also there is a little bit of a bias. So maybe this makes the scale not even in where the investment is going. However, what I can also observe and kind of predict or see happening down the road is more balancing to these investments. And that's not because I would say the US wants to. It's kind of because what's just going to happen, because a lot of dynamic shifts in the world overall. I'm not going to a lot of politics, but there is always a way to balance these dynamics. And I think the step that Donald Trump did now, creating this department, it can be the domino effect for everything to balance out. Talking about this department back in the US, I can say proudly, this happened here even way earlier than it happened there. Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum, the ruler of Dubai, they made this initiative of, they call it zero bureaucracy. So the efficiency of the government transactions and the time and money you spend to go from point A to point B to do something. They've been this initiative, I think, for 1 year now. The efficiency increased like to the roof. And again, in my perspective, I see this that's happening here, that's happening there. How is it balancing the dynamics? And one of the things that Donald Trump also spoke about is that he's going, let's say, to have talks with Russia to end the war in Ukraine and also what's happening in Gaza. So seeing this from zooming out and all of that balance, I always see great things happening in the technology, in the APCDs. And that's really the foundation of how we are going to live our lives in the next decades to come, within our lifetimes and so on. One final point that maybe Xavier didn't mention, they are one of the leading venture capitals in the US. How much you manage now? $1.5 billion?
So under the entire umbrella, it's probably close to that.
Yeah.
On the venture side, we've deployed close to $500 million across 4 funds, over 100 investments.
Amazing. That's a track record, and just to make it in a like to make it in a perspective that what they are doing, guys, is if we took the example of Elon Musk has the potential opportunity to become the first trillionaire in the history. Why? Because he bet on himself first. He doesn't trade on stock market. He has no other investment aside of what his companies, what he's doing. So, and all his companies are focusing on the infrastructure of the future.
Sure.
If you looked on it. So he placed himself to be the first adopters or to be the first in the wave. And he created the wave for the future. So all of this infrastructure investment that he did is what's shaping whatever we conduct our life now. This, what you guys are doing. And at least it's my perspective. So being there in this, and I know your portfolio, I know what you guys are doing. I know the opportunities there. And my prediction went straight after that, the election, I was like, this must be tenfold by now. So placing yourself in front of the opportunities, as you said, and to catch that S curve is the way to go. So guys, the point here, put yourself in front of venture capital funds and in venture capital opportunities. We have one of the most advanced regulations in the region. I'm talking in UAE, ADGM, to that facilitating and putting the right tools and the right channels for venture capitals, for funds to come in and to also to deploy. So this is a message to the whole audience who's listening to this, whether it's here or anywhere in the world. There is a huge opportunity coming, and the best returns is for the people who adapt early on and have patience, right? We're not coming to here and tomorrow you will see the fruits of this. Thank you so much, Xavier. I know we've been bustling around, trying to catch the time, but this came very spontaneous and I'm so grateful. Any last words you want to say?
Well, I just want to also give a huge thank you for the invitation and echoing a lot of the enthusiasm. I think that we have been in a moment where a lot of people are on the sidelines, to your point, and they're trying to observe what's going on, and they're making the wrong decision. A lot of people struggle with going from 0 to 1, and so they just stay at 0.
Yeah.
We have really encouraged our investors and our broader community to at least put a little allocation towards venture. If 0 is the wrong number, and maybe for that individual investor, maybe 10% or 15% is too much, although I would argue that it's not enough. But 0 is the wrong number. And so having a little bit of that exposure does exactly what you were talking about with the major companies today. Going back to the point that you mentioned about like all of the CapEx from the FANG companies, the Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, about a third of that is going to NVIDIA, right? So that is going towards AI chips that are doing advanced machine learning, and they're going to need startups to power that
100%.
because NVIDIA does not actually build the chip.
100%.
They sit on top of a foundry which produces the raw hardware, and they rely upon startups to kind of get the right formula or the recipe, as we call it in the business. And that is really where startups can compete, because you don't necessarily need all the money in the world. You need a smart team, somebody who's actually done this before, and a little bit of luck with the timing. And I think when we look at this next set of venture vintages, they're going to be some of the best performing vintages in history, because we have all of these colliding forces that can really lead to some positive outcomes, like better economic climates, like more people having chips in their pockets. And people are not necessarily going to clamor for less connectivity or for slower connections. It's always to increase that. So I'll leave the audience with, it's an exciting time, and I'm so happy and privileged that I get to be a part of it, and looking forward to coming back and inviting you to join our show next time.
I'm coming 100%. Thank you guys for watching. That being Hafizknows Investment Podcast. Our guest, the GP of Morgan Creek Capital, Xavier. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me, follow them, and we'll keep you posted about the latest news on the VC world.